Did you yell America when you hit the accelerator?
Oh, no.
And now, your favorite two blue-collar nobodies to give you their quiet perspective, Star-Lord and Joey.
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back, YouTubers, to The Quiet Perspective. I am your supreme leader, Darth Star-Lord, with his young Padawan learner, Joey.
What's going on, everybody? And we've got a big can of worms to open up on this one today.
Big can of worms, because it is faux pas and you are not allowed to come out against it or talk bad about it. Joey, inform the viewers of what we are talking about today.
We are going to be talking about basically the big alphabet soup of, the LGBTQ, all that stuff, transgenderism, and all the different things that go with all that.
The big alphabet community. So where to begin with this? I guess we need to just define two things that I think are relevant to the topic here. Sex, as it relates to genitalia. Science explains it. There's two sexes, male, female. Male, you have a penis. Female, you have a vagina. XY, XX chromosome, whichever one it is. Very basic, plain Jane. It's been the same way for 2,000 years. Even cavemen were able to figure it out, obviously, because we're here now.
Right.
And then you have gender, which for the most part has always coincided with sex, but is defined by Wikipedia as a range of characteristics pertaining to and differentiating between masculinity and femininity, depending on context. These characteristics may include biological sex, male, female, intersex variation, which is the oddity, sex-based social structures. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that nowadays, at a person's whim, they can decide that they're a female or a male that day, no matter if they are biologically the other.
Right. So you're talking about, to me, it sounds like what you're describing is a gender role, not so much a tangible thing that you can change and decide.
Right. Yeah. And it's basically it seems to me with all this different stuff, these different terms and that they're coming up with, and every day there's a new one. It seems like they're just kind of making all this up as they go along. I mean,
Yeah,
they're making it
I
way
don't-
more complicated than it has to be also.
So here's how I view it, and tell me how you feel, Joey. I think that I'm with the majority, the quiet perspective, the quiet majority out there, is you're male or female. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yes, we agree. Everyone agrees. There are some oddities out there, the hermaphrodites, the anomalies. Okay, we're not discussing that. That's something completely different.
Yeah, and those people are born that way. They are biologically, they have actual male and female parts. It's not
So-
what they decide to feel that day. It's the way they were born, and you can't help that.
So when these people refer to their gender, to me, I think what they're really talking about is their gender role, as if like a guy says, well, I don't want to wear blue, I want to wear pink. That's kind of how I equate it. My problem with the whole issue is I think they cross that line of their gender role. Instead of saying I'm more feminine or I'm more masculine, they say, no, it changes who I am as a person, and you should treat me differently. I get to use a different bathroom. I get to use, female stuff and male stuff. That's where I think we've gone overboard.
Well, and I might have should have said this already, but everybody needs to understand listening to this also. As far as Star-Lord and I are concerned, we do not care. We don't have a problem with people who are transgender,
Absolutely
gay, bisexual. We don't have a problem with any of those people. What we have a problem with is the way this whole movement is going, and it affects everybody else. That's where we have a problem.
To piggyback on what you said there, I want to get this out there. I want to set as precedent because I believe this is the way it really is. The left hates the right, right hates the left. The left thinks that everybody on the right is a bunch of bigots. We hate gays, we hate transgender, we hate everything. I don't think that's it. Obviously, there's going to be some extremes on the right who are like that. I think the majority of conservatives, people on the right, we don't care what you are. It's up to you. We may like it or dislike it, but that's your business. Have at it. Do it your own. Where we have the problem is when it starts affecting us and we're being persecuted or being called bigots when we're not doing anything wrong, or when the world's trying to change around us in ways that I don't think it needs to change.
Well, and it all comes down to something as simple as, people always say, oh, well, it's free country, you can have your opinion, until it has to do with one of these protected groups like
Exactly.
transgenders and, the LGBT community at large.
So at large, you say. I've got a thing here. Let's talk about the LGBTQ OSI FBI community. I've got a statistic here that says this is from the UK. It says the UK government estimates that there's about 200 to 500,000 transgender people in the country, which equates to 0.3 to 0.75 of the British population. And it says the statistic is similar in the US. This was taken back in 2015. So we're talking about small numbers here. I think, Joey, you've got a
The graphic that I'm showing right now, it says approximately 0.5% of the population is transgender. That's here in the US, and this is from the Center for Suicide Prevention.
Okay. There's another thing on there about since it's from the suicide prevention, you have another statistic about suicide rates or something on there?
Yeah, it says over 10% of transgender people report recently attempting suicide within the previous year. Now, these stats appear at the bottom of each little stat I'm reading. These are from 2015, 2014 on one of them. So these aren't, you can't really find any really recent stats on this. And I think most of this is going to be, again, approximated in estimates because, like we said earlier, if everybody in the country decides tomorrow they're going to be a woman, well, guess what? You're transgender now. So the whole country's transgender, not 0.5%. It's really hard to get concrete numbers on something like this.
All right, so let's talk about that real quick. I want to bring this up. You're bringing up, we're talking about the numbers. Okay, so this happened when coming out was the big thing, coming out as gay, because let's face it, gays were faux pas. It was the big joke. You didn't want to be gay. You didn't want to be called queer, fag. It's become more acceptable now. It's more mainstream. But I think when that whole movement started, and I saw it in high school, everybody became a lesbian at some point, and it was a fad.
Yeah.
How much of this is a fad?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's, we're showing these graphics and reading these stats and stuff, and I'm telling you right now, I think the 0.5% is probably kind of accurate. But if that's not completely accurate, then every stat after that is skewed a little.
Yeah,
and it's you just don't know.
Let me ask you this: how many have you met? How many of the 88 people on the transgender list? I mean, unless you've walked into a Starbucks, I don't think you've ever met one of these people.
Well, I mean, I've never been to Starbucks myself, but I don't think I've met. I mean, I've known gay people, but as far as like transgender, no, I've never personally met one. Wouldn't care if I did. It wouldn't bother me. But yeah. That's the point. I think that's where you're going, is that there's such a small part of the population and there's such a huge uproar about this
huge outcry.
Yeah.
And I think most of it is from a bunch of, I'm going to say it, spoiled rich white kids who want to complain and just have a cause and be their little hippies. And they're standing up and they're this, they're that. I'm trans this, trans that. And I think for them, and don't get me wrong, there's legitimates out there. I'm talking, and I think even people on that side of the aisle have to agree. There's a bunch of people out there just bullshitting us.
Well, like we talked about already, they make up new genders every day. It's really hard when they're doing it the way they're doing it to take it completely serious all the time.
And I'm glad you brought that up. So I have a list here. You have a similar list. Mine says 58 separate genders. And
this is the options for Facebook users that they're coming with. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I've got that one. I've got one that says genders and sexualities.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how many there are. So here's one. erasure, ignoring the existence of genders and sexualities in the middle of the spectrum. Here's one we're all familiar with: queer or reclaim. That's just a slur. Yeah, that's just queer.
Well,
Cisgender.
is it though? Because homosexual people call themselves queers now. See, that's that's a thing right there. It used to be for sure. You called a homosexual, hey, you queer, that was an insult. Now they call each other that, and they don't care. So it's even the old terms are changing meaning, and it's
that's one thing I hate about this movement, and most of the left social movements is moving the goalposts by changing definitions. They take a word that never meant anything, and now it does, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I have a real big issue with that. But let's go over some of these transes and what. So polygender. Do you know what that means, Joey?
Well, poly I think means more than 2 or 3 in gender, so I don't know.
Good job. You know your Latin, I guess. Polygender, when you identify with multiple genders at once. Apparently, this is a thing. Here's neutrois, when you identify as a gender neither male nor female and or genderless.
Oh my God!
How I don't even get that. What is the thought process behind that? You look down, you have genitalia. You're either one or the other.
I'm looking at the same list, and I've got one that I like. It's my favorite one probably, and it's pretty representative of this entire list and how ridiculous it is. Novigender. You know what novigender means? It's a gender that is. It says it's a gender that is super complex and impossible to describe in a single term. That's the definition. What the hell does that even mean?
God. So what I'm gathering from most of these, a poragender, somebody with a strong gender identification of themselves that is non-binary. Okay, now I got to go look up non-binary. This is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so
just be who you are, like what you like, and go with it. Why do you have to? In a day and age where labels are so taboo, and then here they are, people are making lists of all these different things,
and they're wanting rights, like as if they don't have rights.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. This is like we said at the beginning. This isn't about transgender people or the problem. It's this type of stuff here, because not only do they have all these different words, which, there's probably only 1 or 2 people, whoever made these up, that actually think that that's what they are or feel that way. You can actually get fined, or these people want to be able to legally charge you with assault for misgendering them.
We're using the wrong pronoun.
Yeah.
We're demonized if we don't act accordingly to how they feel, as if we should be able to know how they feel at all times. And again, I want to put this out there just real quick, because I've had this argument with people before. I've had civil discussions with people and not so civil. Some people defending people who really feel like they're a woman trapped in a man's body. Okay, and I've talked to these people, and they legitimately feel it, whether I agree with it or not, whether I think they're sick in the head or not, or just wrong, or just weird. That is your choice and your option, but it does not change who you are sexually. You are male or female. It should not change which bathroom you use, which sporting event you play in. It doesn't change any of that. How you feel is irrelevant as far as that goes. And that's my argument about all of this.
Yeah, you either are biologically a male or you are biologically a female. How you feel is up to you. That's how a person feels. That's how they feel. But everybody else around you shouldn't be negatively affected because they don't understand. We're not mind readers. Nobody's a mind reader. So,
Whatever happened to the old term where we just called them all cross-dressers?
Well, that's probably unacceptable nowadays. I couldn't tell you, though. I don't know.
Moving on. Want to go to... I found this interesting. This is actually what had me decide to do this topic for this episode, was Piers Morgan, of all people.
I couldn't believe when I saw this.
I know. Anti-gun, anti-right. had it out with some people on Britain This Morning, whatever, with the BBC, because the BBC was pushing some rhetoric to children about the hundred different genders they claim, and we've got a clip that we want to play for you of that interaction, and it's a good one. So take a look at this.
Benjamin, what is neutroids?
Oh, come on. Are we going to go through all 100?
Do you know any of them?
I need
Well, I
to
know some
know
of them,
what
yeah. But look, here's my
99
point.
are.
No offence, you
No,
come
no,
on
no.
national television to defend the BBC, telling kids there are 100 genders. I'm now reading out a number of these 100 genders. A, you've never heard of them. B, you've no idea what they are. But C, you want to encourage the BBC to instruct our kids that they should be one of these genders.
But that isn't the point. The fact is...
That is the point.
The fact is that people identify in different ways. And when you get bogged down by the idea that children might know that they're different, that they might be helped to understand why they're different, that the teachers teaching them might be prepared with the apparatus to explain it to them, that is a good thing.
100
I think
different
if I may just
parents,
quickly
surely.
finish.
Do you know what neutroids is?
You might find it strange and unusual, and we might not be able to answer what every one of the 100 is. But that doesn't mean that
seem to
they
know any
don't
of them.
exist.
Okay, so there's the first clip from it's like a 13-minute segment. Your reaction, Joey?
This is one of those people that you were talking about that wants to jump on the cause, and this guy didn't even bother to research the stuff because he obviously doesn't know what's on the list, what half of it means. He doesn't even know, but he wants to be the mouthpiece for it and get on TV.
Mm-hmm. What I love about it too is he's like what you said. He's going to be one of the people that demonize you for identifying someone when he's going to be guilty of the same thing. No, everybody is. I've got three.
Well,
different
this guy
things
right
that
here,
say
he's even worse than the ones that are going to get pissed because he's not even going to know to get pissed. He's supposed to be representing all this stuff and being behind these people and all this nonsense, but he couldn't even. If I misgendered somebody, he wouldn't even know it.
Right. You know, it's something that irritates me about, and it's not just trans people, but anybody who takes up a cause and they get offended because they were misgendered or this and that. Whatever happened to intent? Did I intend to offend you? Because if I didn't, don't be a dick. It's
Yeah.
really that simple. If I use a bad word that I don't know is a bad word, am I an asshole? Or am I just ignorant?
Yeah.
If my 4-year-old uses a bad word, is that a bad 4-year-old or is it a 4-year-old? Whatever happened to intent?
Well, and that's people like that though that get behind causes like this, and there's lots of other causes that are the same thing, but it's
Well, and that's why I think this is, for the most part, majority of this is all fake. Nobody with a logical mind is going to get offended at you for misgendering them on accident. They would
Yeah.
simply correct you and say they don't need special privileges. They don't need people on BBC, this and that. I think those are the people who were already transgender and you never knew it.
yeah.
I think the cause is illegitimate. I don't think it's real.
Well, and all the uproar that it causes, it's not helping anybody.
No.
It's like you
No.
said, how many people were transgender before and we never even knew? Now they're going to be thrust into the spotlight, or their situation is, and it's going to cause more problems for them than not.
Well, let's talk about what the idiot in the glasses just said. Children are different, and they need to be told they're different. Blah 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 blah. Okay, first of all, how different are everybody? I mean, not everybody's special. Not everybody's unique in a bunch of different ways. But he says they're different. We're talking about all these trans things. You're talking about how a kid feels. Yeah. Hey, you feel like this. You feel like you like purple. You feel like you like blue. Why do we have to label it?
Yeah,
Why
why
do we
does
have to
it?
say?
Kids that like the color blue are called this, and kids that like purple are called this. All you're doing
Yeah,
is dividing everybody into these little pods, and so everybody can feel special, I guess.
I'm glad you said that, because I truly believe all of this and so many other causes are because of this. What do you call it? The trophy you get. Everybody gets a participation trophy culture.
Yeah.
Because of stuff like this, everybody has to feel special, and you have to give everybody a label and make them feel unique. And I think that's the root cause for a lot of this. And interestingly enough, you were talking about the uproar that comes from all this. And again, Piers Morgan, of all people, backlash over this video that we just saw. According to some paper somewhere, Good Morning Britain viewers overwhelmingly call for his removal as Piers Morgan unleashes fresh anti-trans tirade.
Well,
So
and
apparently,
that's the new thing in the culture now is the cancel culture. They don't like what you say, you're out of here. You're fired. No more opinions,
well, I love how they're fighting for inclusivity, and then when you don't, do what they want, they don't want to include you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's complete hypocrisy.
Everybody should be included except those who disagree with us is what they're saying.
Yeah, and I love how they demonize him. Of all people, I mean, they're eating their own anti-trans tirade. He's literally doing his, and I hate to say it about the man because I don't like him, but he's being a journalist right here. He's questioning. He's trying to figure it out.
Well, and he's calling out the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah, he's about to. We've got a second clip here. This one I really like because this is my personal point of view. I've been saying this forever. I've got a lot to say about this. So take a listen to this short clip, and we'll talk about this one too.
Well, hang on. Let me just say this. Can I,
This is all yours.
under this new world of self-identification, as I did earlier, now identify as a two-spirit neutroid penguin?
Well, you're not a penguin because to use a bit of
Why?
common sense.
Why? Who says I'm not?
Well, I mean, that's not a thing that happens.
Why?
This is the distinction. People do identify
I'm
as
actually a
these different
two-spirit
genders.
neutroid pangender penguin. And how
They
dare
don't-
you?
people don't
How
identify
dare
as
you tell me I
penguins.
can't identify as that? How dare you offend
Well,
me?
you can maybe Piers the
You
penguin.
see how it works, Benjamin?
But
Look,
here's-
there I am. That's me as a
Can you
penguin.
see how it gets
to
to
go
a
and have a
point
word
where
with your
people
doctor.
can make it ridiculous?
Well, only if they want to make it ridiculous. You know, common sense says that these are different
Common
genders.
sense, Benjamin.
Different genders.
And there it is. Common sense. The big word of the day. Common sense. Common sense. I am overwhelmingly offended by this guy's point of view. He says, well, obviously you're not a penguin. Okay, well, obviously you have a dick. You're a male. Obviously you have a vagina. You're a female. Is that not the same line of thinking, same logic?
Well, if you want to talk about things that are obvious, that would be the most obvious thing, but that's not what he wants to talk about.
So I'm just trying to figure out who deemed this guy the almighty, or who deemed the left or the LGBTQ CIA community that they are the almighty ones who get to determine what is and isn't common sense, what is and isn't acceptable. He can't identify as a penguin, but you can identify as a cisgender, non-binary thing that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make sense. And this is the example I use with everybody when I talk about it, because when you accept 100 different genders, you have to accept what I'm about to say. I identify as a 16-year-old boy. I should be allowed to have sex with preteens now, right?
Ah, so now how far are people going to go with this line of thinking when it comes to something like that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because when I say that, anybody listening to this is going to be, oh, no, that's ridiculous. No, but yes, people do that. And I'm just going to open your eyes just a little bit. There's a bunch more out there. Have you ever heard of a trans-able person, Joey?
I've heard the phrase. It's one of the ones I'm not familiar with.
Trans-able is a person who identifies as somebody as being handicapped when they are not.
That's right.
So they may sit around in a wheelchair, even though they have full use of their legs, get handicap passes and all kinds of stuff. Some of them, and a lot of them, will go so far as to actually handicap themselves, mutilate themselves.
But that's not a mental problem, though.
Well, where's the line? Do we accept that or not accept that? Should we ask the BBC guy here?
Well, I mean, you know what he's going to say. He's going to be all
I'm
for
saying,
it.
Should we not rely? I mean, what do you want to rely on? Emotion or facts? Science?
Well, and that's what this whole conversation, in its most simplistic form, boils down to. Liberal people are obviously the ones who push this kind of thing more. This is their argument, their platform, and their cause that they stand up for. But if you just break it down and use actual common sense, I mean, you're a man or a woman.
Real common sense.
And like you said, how you feel about yourself, that doesn't make you, if you feel like a woman, but you were born a man, you're still a man. What makes you a woman?
Yeah. Now you can go dress as one, you can go act as one, But when your death certificate comes up, you're going to be put down as a man.
Yeah.
You're male, pure and simple. You know, when you go to your doctor and you have some sort of weird cancer, are you going to tell them you're female when it comes down to what kind of medication you're supposed to get, and one's going to kill you and one's not? You're going to tell the truth.
Yeah,
You're going to tell what
if
makes
you have
sense.
ovarian cancer and you're a female and you identify as a male, are you going to tell your doctor, no, that can't be, I'm not taking that because I can't have that because I'm a male?
Well, you know, they are trying to get, who was it? Tampax? Somebody had to get women or something taken off of the labels or something of their products because men can menstruate too now, emotionally, I guess.
Come on.
This is how far they're taking it. Again, I don't care if you want to feel however you want to feel, but you don't get to change the world around you. You don't get to go use a girl's restroom when you have a penis. Just
Yeah,
because you feel like a girl doesn't mean you are. I'm
right.
sorry, nothing changes that. Unless you want to get the full Caitlyn Jenner, you're still a man. And even then, it's weird, but I guess, you know, that's how you earn your wings.
Well,
If
I mean,
they-
even still at a DNA biological level,
Yeah.
you're still a man.
Yeah.
You can get yourself castrated and flipped and tucked or whatever the hell they do. You're still at your core, at a molecular level, you're still a man.
Mm-hmm.
If they did a DNA test on you, it would come back that you were a male. None of that, no amount of hormones or surgeries are going to change the fact that your DNA makeup is that of a male.
Well, that's what common sense says. That's what common sense. So I'm glad Piers brought up the cisgendered penguin. There's another trans out there. You may have heard of it. Trans species. Have you heard of this one?
Well, yeah, I've heard of it. Again, I haven't heard of. I mean, this is something people are really claiming.
This is actually a big one, believe it or not. Trans species are people who don't feel they're human. They usually identify as an animal like a cat or a dog. Some have identified as alien species. But I watched a documentary on a guy who dresses up like a dog. And I shit you not, he actually lives in his mother's basement. He's like a 38-year-old man. Obviously, something's wrong with the guy, but he dresses like a dog, goes out as a dog into public, crawls around. People pet him. It's weird. Are you going to sit there and tell him, is this acceptable?
Well, and why are people encouraging that?
Because you got people like BBC here that say, I guess that's within common sense, I guess.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, they're not doing that. Somebody like that obviously has mental issues, and nobody's doing him any favors by humoring that.
No, it's not. In that same vein, trans ageism, that one's kind of obvious. I brought up the 16-year-old boy screwing little girl saying, that same documentary, I wish I could remember what it is. I'm sure you can find it if you look it up, was a guy who identified as like a 12-year-old girl. And he's like a 40-year-old man, weird looking bald dude. But he was actually, I don't think legally, but, you know, adopted, quote unquote, by a male and female married couple. And they would treat him like their daughter, put him in clothes, have tea parties with him and everything.
That's just ridiculous. Well, I mean, that's just as silly as like, well, okay, what if I want to be trans age starting Wednesday when I'm supposed to go to work? Well, can I go to my work? Can I go to my work and say, well, I feel like I'm 59 and a half, which is just happens to be retirement age. I need to go ahead and retire and get full retirement and benefits. Is that, what if that's the way I feel?
Apparently,
well, hell no, that's not going to happen because that's not.
But the way it's going now and the way what everybody's pushing is that is the way it's supposed to be. Let's say there's a long line at the ball game for the pisser, and you can't wait. You just walk right into the women's bathroom. Somebody's going to scream and yell. You can just go, "Hey, I identify as a woman." Is that or is that not proper now, according to the left?
Well, that's what they think, but I can tell you that's not right.
It's not right, but they can't see. I mean, according to this guy and according to the left's arguments, you can't lose that argument.
Right.
You can do whatever the hell you want because it's how you feel. It can't be proven. It can't be disproven. It's an emotional BS argument.
Yeah. Well, and you don't even have to say, you could say I'm gender fluid, and since I'm about to piss my pants, I feel like a woman. Since I'm about to gender fluid all over my pants.
That's a good one. So let's talk about how it affects real world applications. It affects kids. It's affecting kids in a lot of way. We have a lot of trans athletes.
Oh
We've seen
man,
the
this is a
stories.
joke.
Okay, so just to name off of it, you type it into your Google or your Yahoo, it's going to come up with stuff. I've got a trans athlete here who competed in the men's hurdles division, didn't win shit. Now it's winning women's national title. Go figure. I've got a trans athlete woman world cycling competition. She keeps riding against transphobic critics. Wonder why. I think this is a high school. Yeah, Connecticut high school. Transgender girl wins state track championship. So it's a guy beating a bunch of girls here.
Well, let me throw something in because I found a couple little things that I'm pretty sure this is from this may be from the same article because it's Connecticut. It says the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference has a policy that allows high school students born male to compete in athletic competitions if they identify as female, regardless of whether they have taken steps to alter their physiology. As a result, since 2017, two biological males have collectively won 15 women's track championship titles previously held by 10 Connecticut females against biological female track athletes.
Wow.
What does that tell you?
I'm glad you found that. You do better research than I do.
You've got
So-
two males since 2 years ago, two males have taken over 15 championship titles that were previously held by 10 women. That right there
let me
tells
play
you.
devil's advocate and give you the left argument on that. I've seen their rebuttal to that. Well, not all men are superior to women physically, blah 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 blah. Well, no kidding. But generally speaking, men and the cavemen, they were the ones who went out and beat the dinosaurs and brought home dinner. Woman cooked it, and then we dragged you into the rock cave and had sex. That's the way of the world. Women are built differently, men are built differently. Generally, yeah, now in San Francisco and New York City, that's changing a little bit. But generally speaking, that's the way it goes.
People need to understand men have more muscle mass, more skeletal bone density. They've just got bigger hands, thicker jaws. I mean, it's like we were talking, like I mentioned, Fallon Fox. If you're not familiar with that, or you may be if you listen to Joe Rogan because he does the commentating for UFC, for MMA fights, he's talked about this several times. Fallon Fox was born a male and ended up getting, transitioning to a female. She ended up getting into MMA fighting and fought 2 professional fights before they even knew that she was transgender. Okay. In those 2 fights, her first fight, I think it was her first or second one that and of course she won both of them. She knocked the girl out that she was fighting and cracked her orbital socket and gave her a concussion.
God.
And stuff happens. People break arms and people get fucked up in these MMA fights, but you can't tell me that a biological male beating on a woman is right.
No, it's absolutely not. Hell, where I come from, that's called domestic violence.
Yeah. And it's pretty sad that they're hiding behind social justice and saying that's okay.
Well, there's always been a reason why you have separation in sports. You have softball, baseball. You have girls basketball, boys basketball. There's a reason. That reason didn't change because you have a bunch of liberals get up and say, I feel like something different today. There is a genetic, physical difference between men and women. Period. End of story. You can't change that with emotions. If that weren't the case, tell me why so many of these transgender people, as their God-given gender, weren't worth a darn as what they were, but as soon as they switch over, they start winning titles and championships and everything.
Yeah, it's just like the another example of that is, I think it was Serena Williams. She actually she did like an exhibition. It was just like a tune-up thing against a guy, a 15-year-old who was ranked like number 200 on the men's world rankings or whatever, and he smoked her. This is the greatest female tennis player that's ever played. She kills almost everybody she plays against. But this 15-year-old, 200 ranked male just beat her ass.
Well, I gotta
And
tell
she
you
was
what,
fine with it. She even went on to say she would never go up against Andy Roddick. She goes, he'd destroy me. But that's
Well,
just the
I gotta tell
reality
you
of
what,
it.
if I were that 15-year-old boy, I'd take advantage while the iron's still hot, hop over to the transgender thing, and go kick some professional women's tennis players' butts.
Well, and that's the problem with all this as far as the transgenders and the sports. They're ruining women's sports.
Yeah, where's all the women activists on this? I mean, I know I've heard of some,
Well, I
but
know Martina Navratilova, she big time tennis player, and it was another one that came out just recently, and they both said it's not right. It is not right, and of course
I
they're
defy
being
anybody to
vilified.
prove us wrong.
Well,
I want to hear it. Honest to God, let's have a civil conversation. Leave it in the comments. Let us know. I want to hear. I want to have a civil conversation with people on this. I want to know people who defend these actions. I want to know how the hell you do that logically. Because to me, there's no doubt in my mind I can change your mind or make you quit the argument and walk away like a bitch.
well,
'Cause
one simple way to look at it too. You ever notice we only hear about the men transitioning to women and taking over women's sports? Haven't seen
yeah,
too many women doing the opposite. I wonder
I will say
why.
I think I saw one. I don't remember what the sport, but it wasn't anything significant. But you're right. It's going to be more one-sided. Absolutely.
And that in and of itself proves that men doing it, men transitioning and going into women's sports is unfair.
Yeah,
They have a total
absolutely.
advantage.
Yeah, there's a Canadian bicyclist, Rachel McKinnon, returns to defend her track world title. She says it is a human right to be able to compete as a trans woman. As a trans woman,
No.
absolutely not. It is not a human right to no. So the big story I want to bring up as far as trans women competing, because this one makes its way on the global scale. There is a New Zealand wrestler, trans woman, which means man to woman, not wrestler as I was, power lifter. Took several medals, won 2 golds and a silver in 3 of women's heavyweight categories, dominating the games in Somalia. This is at the Olympic level. Hubbard competed for New Zealand in the men's weightlifting before a transition. Apparently didn't do squat over there, but now she is I guess, the best athlete out there. I mean,
Yeah.
just look at this character too. That's a man all day.
I mean, powerlifting. Come on. If there was ever a perfect example of
Oh yeah,
the physical differences between a man and a woman, I mean, come on.
yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
joke. And what is this saying to all these young girls and women in college sports and stuff that are been doing this stuff all their lives, training and getting, trying to win a state championship in weightlifting or, a college championship in a sport, and then all of a sudden now some guy decides he wants to be a woman and he gets to come in there and just blows them away.
Yeah,
That's
and that's
terrible.
demoralizing. And I've seen some outcry, nothing major. It's definitely not mainstream. But where's the women activist on this?
Well,
I
and
mean, you want to talk about
that's the
women's
power
rights?
of social justice right there. That's the power of, not wanting to look bad to the public. I
Yeah,
think that's why there's
absolutely.
not a big outrage. I mean, like I said, Martina Navratilova came out, and I can't, like I said, there was another one. Ronda Rousey spoke out about Fallon Fox, because she was in the UFC. She didn't think it was right at all. There are some, but the vast majority of them, they're gonna go with the crowd. They're not gonna make any waves or put themselves out there. They're not gonna stick their neck out to do the right thing.
Yeah. And another thing that makes all of this very, very bad is you're not allowed to disagree. Pierce Morgan wasn't offensive. He wasn't, an ass about it, but he's being demonized and they want him taken off the show. You can't even have a discussion about this. If you're on the wrong side of the argument, you're not allowed to speak. And
Yeah.
you're not going to make progress that way. I want to jump just a little bit over. We're talking about athletes. This one hits home for me. This is my Air Force. We're talking about transgender in the military. Supposedly, in the United States Air Force, there is a Staff Sergeant Logan Ireland. This is female to male. This is the other way. And actually, I think there's 2 of them that I've read about it. but is transgender. And according to Trump's announcements, transgenders are not going to be in the military. So I want to get your take on that just right off the bat. How do you feel about that, Joey? Transgenders in the military.
For one thing, I think you're well aware, being ex-military, we've talked about it before, how many suicides there are, of people who have been in the military, come back home, suffer from PTSD and other things like that. It- Veterans are committing suicide at record rates today. Okay.
Yeah.
So to go back to the stats that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, there's about a 40% suicide rate in transgenders. Okay. So up until May of this year, the World Health Organization classified gender dysphoria as a mental illness. Okay. That people were diagnosed with a mental illness if they were transgender.
So they wouldn't even be allowed to be in the military then.
Right. Well, the World Health Organization decided to change that, and it's no longer gender dysphoria. They call it something else. There's going to be a link to the article. It's a good read. And they moved it from the mental disorder chapter in the book to the sexual health chapter. So it's now not even considered a mental illness all of a sudden.
So
Why?
they cured it by changing the definition.
Right. And why? Because of social pressure. And it's not nice. It hurts people's feelings. They don't want to hear that they have a mental disorder. So if you have anybody that you love that goes crazy, Roy, don't fucking tell them that they're crazy and don't do anything to help them. Just tell them that, tell everybody that's normal and it'll just go away, I guess.
Jesus Christ. The old saying, the truth hurts, is a saying for a reason. Whatever happened to just getting over shit? The truth hurts. Get over it. So let me give you my take on the transgender in the military. This is female to male. I don't care if it's male to female, female to male. Let me give you the logistics part of it that I don't like. So there's going to be inherent health issues that go along with it. You've got a person taking hormones from the opposite sex. If you're getting sex changes, this and that, you have inherent medical costs. You're going to have medical problems. You're going to have all kinds of stuff to deal with that. Possibly mental issues, which I would venture to say you're going to have. Like you said, it is a mental illness. I don't care what anybody says. It is not normal. And even if it is normal, 99.8% of the world is not that. So you're going to have issues integrating. You're going to have health issues mentally. That's all going to be on the taxpayer's bill now because you are in the military. Now, you introduce an unstable person into a squadron, a flight, platoon, whatever the Navy calls their things, a squid, I don't know, into a stressful situation. That is the antithesis of what the military wants and needs. You need uniformity. Uniformity means everybody's the same. And that's not to exclude people. That's for functionality. That's for power. That's for structure. That's to make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to. When you disrupt that with anything, it's a bad recipe for disaster. You cannot do it. Now let's just talk about if you're going to treat this female as a male. And I'm looking at a picture of this guy, girl. It's buffer than me. Good on him, her. This one can probably do all the things a man can. Good for it. But they're not all going to be like that. I can tell you, I did exercises with females who couldn't pick me up, who couldn't lift, who were too indecisive and too feminine to pull their gun at the appropriate time. And in exercises, I'm dead because they were sitting there screaming like a little girl. So, I mean, there's a lot of inherent problems with it. I don't like it. I think logistically it doesn't work. And I think mentally it's not good for them. I don't think it's good for the people around them. That may not be the popular opinion. That's how I feel. Give me an opposing view and we can talk about it. But that's exactly how I feel about it. I don't think it ends well for anybody. And I commend them. They want to serve. They do. But so do people with flat feet and they can't.
Well, and bottom line, as far as I can see, this whole debate about transgenders in the military is a big social experiment, and I'm thinking overseas in a combat situation is not the place for a social experiment.
Absolutely not. I'll tell you this, just from being deployed, women, and I'm not saying women are bad, blah, blah, don't jump on me, feminazis. Women in a combat zone is very distracting because men are horny, and there's a saying, what happens in the desert stays in the desert for a reason. That's a distraction nobody needs, and you can literally be caught with your pants down and get shot in the back of the head, get blown up. These things happen. Now, if you're having to worry about some he, she next to you, is he going to flirt with me, this and that? Maybe it's your own insecurity. I don't know, but that's what happened with the introduction of an unstable element. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. And that was the whole reason I brought up the gender dysphoria and all that, to get to the point that these people already typically historically have mental issues. Okay? Now you're going to put a gun in their hands and stick them over there fighting in, like you said, a super stressful situation, scary situations. Why? I mean, in other words, there's enough servicemen and women that have issues over there anyway. Why would you take a person that probably already has some form of mental issue and then put them over there just to say you can?
Yeah, they're not going to take somebody who committed suicide or attempted suicide, and then let them sign up.
Yeah,
because they don't want the risk.
right.
They could be perfectly fine and never do it again, but you're disqualified if you ever attempted suicide. You cannot join the military.
Yeah.
So yeah, give me your closing thoughts on the whole issue. I mean, give me your rundown on all of it. Where do you stand on this whole transgender thing? What message would you want to get out to the people, to transgenders, to the left, to the right, to grandmas who don't know what the hell's going on?
Well, just like we said in the beginning, if you're transgender or you want to be transgender or whatever, I don't care. I could care less. That's your personal thing. But like I also said, when it starts affecting me or just everybody around, especially for such a small portion of the population, you're trying to rewrite biology. You're trying to rewrite the English language. You're coming up with new words and titles and labeling everything on a whim. Every day there's a new gender out there that you can look up.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's not about there's not a problem with transgenders or anybody that falls under the LGBTQ community. It's not the people themselves. It's just the way this movement is going about that is a problem.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Joey here. I want to start off by saying I'm a very offensive person. I'm very crass. I don't hate anybody, really. LGBTQYXR and whatever. I make fun of it. It's funny, whatever. It's comedy. It used to be a thing. Now you're not allowed to do it. I don't hate any one of you people. I don't care what hole you're putting it in, who you're touching, who you're loving. That's your own thing. But when we start asking for special rights, I have an issue with it. Y'all all want everybody to be equal and on the level ground, but I don't see it that way. I see a lot of people wanting to be special, get special rights, special recognition. You got gay pride parades, transgendered parades. If I have a I love you know what parade, it ain't gonna fly. We just need to leave each other alone. Have what you have. And I'm sorry, you have to accept facts and science. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't make it so. If I feel like I'm a helicopter, does that mean Walmart has to put in a helipad so that I can go change my oil there? That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
You saying that's ridiculous. You got to use common sense. No, you don't. Because according to your arguments on the left, common sense is thrown out the window when you can just make it up. You are not the deciding factor on who gets to say what is and isn't common sense. That's what science is for. That's what I have to say about it.
And I agree with that.
So if you agree, disagree, we'd love to hear from you. We want to talk about it. Maybe have a follow-up episode with somebody who hated everything we have to say. We'd love to have a civil discussion. I really would. I want to hear the other side of it. If I'm being an ignorant asshole, I want to know it. Please let us know and we can talk about it. So that being said, on to our quick social media minute. I want to pop up with something I saw a little bit earlier, Joey. I'm sure you don't care. Do you remember Lois and Clark, the TV show? Dean Cain and
Oh yeah. Terry Hatcher.
Terry Hatcher, yeah. Oh man, I love Terry Hatcher.
Yeah, I had a crush on her.
Apparently, the Arrowverse on CW is creating a new Superman and Lois show. Not happy about it. Not excited about it. I think the CW verse is just terrible. I don't think you've even seen it. You're lucky.
What? Who's going to be in it? Anybody, or is it like new
Nobody,
people?
you know. It's somebody they've already got playing Superman, and he doesn't really look the part.
Yeah.
Scrolling by. I picked this out simply because I'm sure we'll hear something bad about it. It's just a picture of President Trump and the First Lady celebrating Halloween at the White House. It's adorable, beautiful picture, giving out candy, picking stuff up. It's what he should be doing, but somewhere he's going to get blasted for it, and I think it's disgusting. I just want to give a shout out to him for doing a great job and just being human.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be something along the lines of President Trump is contributing to childhood obesity,
Yeah, or
passing out candy.
yeah, celebrating the dead and the demon and the devil.
Yeah.
Scrolling through. Oh, I saw this earlier, and this excites me. Okay, huge Star Trek nerd. Star Trek 4, they came up with this thing that they use in all the starships called transparent aluminum. Sounds pretty cool. According to this article here, glass made of metal.
What?
So you have transparent metal. Imagine the implications now. You could actually
Dude.
make spaceships, submarines with windows. Science is awesome. I mean, that is just absolutely
Yeah, man. We could sit and brainstorm, think of just different cool shit they could make with that.
Yeah, absolutely cool. And ironically, the very first comment on the page says Star Trek 4. Somebody was thinking the same thing I was.
Damn.
Let's see. Last one we got here. Scrolling. We'll go with this. I'm not a big fan, but I'm sure it means something to a lot of people out there. Apparently, there's going to be a Jay and Silent Bob reboot movie. I wasn't a big fan of the first one, but I'm sure that's big news to somebody out there.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching the first movie, and I thought they were funny, but I'm not like a super fan or anything. The reason I said is just like the reboot of Lois and Clark. Are they out of ideas? Everything's a fucking reboot nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come up with some new stuff.
They've got a big underground following, or
yeah,
cult.
they do, and I'm sure it'll be popular. It'll either be loved or it'll be hated. I bet one of the two.
Apparently, it was almost like a crowdfunded thing. 20,000 investors who helped bring it back. So, hooray to the fans, I guess.
There'll be 20,000 people that like it. That's for sure.
So that's it. I wish I could say in a nutshell, but it wasn't. I mean, it's an in-depth conversation.
And we will be including a lot of links in the description for pretty much any graphic or quote, or anything we brought up. This got a lot of good articles tied to it. So check out the articles, read them all, and, like Star-Lord said, let's talk about it in the comments.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. So all that being said, be who you are. Just don't push it on anybody else. This is Star-Lord and Joey signing off.